Part 12. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 111. When Zhang Fengxia heard what he said, she smiled and shook her head. In her eyes, Lu Feng was just a mindless man. With luck, he was able to get to where he is today, except for self-confidence. Perhaps it could be said that he was ignorant and fearless. The data shows that there is also a local furniture factory, and it is still a big one. With Wantung Industrial building a factory here, the impact on this enterprise can be imagined. The enemy of the enemy is a friend. Lu Feng is a foreigner, and his local relationship is not strong enough. However, this company is not small and should have some relationship. After looking through the address, Lu Feng put the information on the bedside table, stood up and said, let's go out. I still go to the investment promotion office? I can't deal with that director. They don't know my grandfather, Zhang Fengxia muttered. If you go and get kicked out again, I can't afford to lose that person. Don't go there, go back to Tiancheng Furniture Factory this time. Tiancheng Furniture Factory is a well-known furniture enterprise in the province. It has 6 factories, mainly making office furniture and cabinets. With the increasing demand for marriage, furniture has become a hardcore condition, especially cabinets. Tiancheng Furniture changed the company into a group management this year, thinking about going out of the local area and promoting it to the whole country. Before it went out of the local area, it was beaten by Wantung Industrial, and the boss Hao Donggren, who beat him, has not yet recovered. At the door of Tiancheng Furniture, the guard looked at Lu Feng for a while and said, I really don't know if the boss is here or not. You don't have a phone number, I really dare not let you in. Is he here recently? Or you can find your manager, Lu Feng said helplessly. It's okay to have a phone call. I'm a security guard, I really don't know that much. Lu Feng nodded his head to show his understanding. Just as he was about to go back, a tiger headed towards him. The window of the car was lowered and it was a man in a suit. He glanced at Lu Feng and asked, what are you doing? I'm here to find someone. Seeing that he didn't look like an ordinary person, Lu Feng said, I just want to find the boss here. There is a business negotiation of hundreds of millions, but there is no one to match up, so I can only come and ask myself. The other party glanced at Lu Feng and Zhang Fengxia. Just these two? Hundreds of millions of transactions. What kind of deal can be worth hundreds of millions? The other party stared at Lu Feng as if he were a liar. Let's put it this way, this factory is dying. Without me, it would have to close within a year at most, Lu Feng said mysteriously. What nonsense! Get out. This man was not in a hurry, the doorman was in a hurry first, and scolded Lu Feng. Stand over there and don't even say a word. Zhang Fengxia hurriedly took 2 steps back. She was afraid that the security guard would rush out and beat her. Looking at Lu Feng was like looking at a monkey. If this person was not a high-level furniture executive, he would be wasting his words. If so, he may have offended a person. No matter how big a boss you are, once you leave the local area, before you become the richest person in the country, you are just a bug, and people will not give you much face at all. Wait, let this gentleman finish. The other party put one hand on the car window and said, are you talking about how my factory is going to close down? I know that your factory mainly produces middle and low-end furniture. Starting this year, Wantung Industrial will move in. The venue is free, and there are loans and tax exemptions. In such a large market, you can use the bank's money to play low prices first. Strategy, crowd out your terminal market, and the rest will belong to others. Lu Feng slowly took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it, and said, what's your last name? The last name is Hao, but the situation you mentioned is very difficult to happen. We have our own market. It is difficult to overwhelm us at one time. I know, but have you ever thought about it? Once the other party becomes bigger, will his speech have weight? Then what? Lu Feng smiled slightly. If it were me, I would submit a report to the Market Supervision Bureau to formulate the industry standard, whether it is board, compound glue, paint particle emissions. Mr. Howe's face has already turned pale, and the furniture maker doesn't care about market competition. This kind of thing is a commodity, not a snack. Generally speaking, it runs to many stores, and once the brand is established locally, it is difficult to fall. But he is afraid of industry supervision. Although he does not check environmental protection now, the implementation standards will come out every few years. Who are you? You know building materials so well. I don't know about building materials, but I know business. My name is Lu Feng. I'm the owner of a food company. I'm here to tell you this because of wonton industry. Lu Feng said everything frankly. He knew, if he hides it, it will only make him think more, and no one is a fool. By directly stating your own interests, you will be able to cooperate more harmoniously. The other party got out of the car directly, looking a lot more solemn. He stretched out his hand and shook hands and said, I'm sorry, I'm the owner of Tiancheng Furniture, and my name is Hao Donggren. I've been thinking about this for a few days. Mr. Lu said something. It's really mind-blowing. It's just to provide Mr. Hao with perspectives from different perspectives. I don't dare to be the same, we have the same goals and interests. Lu Feng held his hand and said, to attract investment and attract Vantoni Industrial, for you, it is bringing wolves into the room. If I come, it will be multiple friends and multiple paths. Mr. Lu, let's talk in the office. Hao Donggren politely opened the car door and said, get in the car. Zhang Fengxia sat in the back seat and stared at Lu Feng with wide eyes. She couldn't understand why she was suddenly invited into the car so solemnly. She felt that the boss driving in front of her was mentally retarded. The two of them didn't have any proof. Just because Lu Feng said he was the owner of the food factory, he believed it. As for the things that Lu Feng said, Zhang Fengxia felt that the possibility was relatively low. The industry standard is not set by anyone who wants to, not to mention that there are many small workshops everywhere, and a lot of shoddy production. The car was parked under an office building. Hao Donggren took Lu Feng to the parlor and ordered the receptionist to pour tea, and he would come over in a while. Zhang Fengxia sat on the sofa with Erlang's legs crossed, and looked at Lu Feng. If you have any questions, please tell me quickly, don't mess with me for a while. Lu Feng took a sip of his tea and said. You two know each other? Do not know. He is a big boss. He trusts you so easily. To be honest, if I open a company and you hang out at the door of my company, I will definitely drive you away. He didn't say he was the boss at the beginning. Didn't you realize that he was always ready to greet the security guard and drive me away? Lu Feng put down his teacup and said, why didn't he drive me away? Because what I said made sense. Said it was in his heart. Setting up industry standards, then this industry standard will operate, this matter. How can a side bed allow others to sleep soundly? I can be sure that Mr. Hao has not slept well for a long time. Even if there is no industry standard, he used to be the #1 furniture person in the province. Wonton Industrial Co., Limited. After coming here, he is the second child. It is not a matter of making less money, but also a matter of looking at people's faces. What's your face? Lu Feng looked at her and sighed. Fortunately, she had a good grandfather. It's like the first time we went to the investment promotion office, the director gave the same look. Lu Feng looked at her and said, can you bear it? For the first time, Zhang Fengxia felt that Lu Feng had thought through a lot of issues, and the interactions in the world of people were not a simple question. A look, an action, and even a gentle, humble, tough voice all represented an attitude. She thought carefully about how Lu Feng was talking to Hao Donggren at the gate. Every word suggested that we are in the same boat. If you don't stand with me, you will be ruined. Pass industrial drive away. A few minutes later, Hao Donggren walked in, followed by a man in his 30s who wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses and looked polite. "Let me introduce, this is our company's public relations manager, Manager Wang." "Hello, I'm the owner of GMA Food, my name is Lu Feng." Lu Feng reached out and shook it. Everyone exchanged a few words and sat down. Hao Dongren looked at Lu Feng and asked straight to the point, "I wonder how much Mr. Lu knows about wonton industry." "I really don't know much about it. To be honest, I just arrived yesterday. I originally planned to build a big factory here this year." "Isn't this a promotion for investment promotion?" "Take it," Lu Feng said with a wry smile, "that's why I came to see you today." Manager Wang raised his eyebrows and said, "Mr. Lu is also a man with eyes and eyes. He knows so much in 2 days. As a foreigner, it's not easy. Look for someone and trust me." Lu Feng took a sip from the teacup and asked thoughtfully, "Do you think this company can take root here?" "I don't know, but I want to share with you a little bit about the situation. This company specializes in mid to high-end furniture, and it also does a lot of overseas building materials business. It's very big. Their boss has arrived, and they should start negotiations soon. And set up an office. As for the leader of this project, called Lu Jenies, I heard that this single tap is as high as 1.6 million. When Lu Fengxia heard this figure, her eyes glowed. She poked Lu Feng with her hand, and whispered, "Look at people, how generous they are. I just want to know, this company occupies such a large area, how long will it be tax-free? How much will it invest in the future, create jobs, pollute the environment, and how much will it invest in the next few years?" Lu Feng can only hope now that this project is also empty-handed. It is impossible for such a large furniture factory to leave no trace in history. It is definitely a highlight in the furniture factory, but he has never heard of it. "I don't know much about these situations." Manager Wang hesitated. Lu Feng seemed to sense that the other party didn't trust him too much, so he cleared his throat and said, "If there is something wrong with some of the data in the other party, I can try to make a big news." Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 112. Hao Dongren glanced at Manager Wang, pondered for a moment, and said, "It's nothing, just say what you have to say. Now everyone is their own. Besides, Mr. Lu may know the information after a few more calls." Manager Wang cleared his throat and said, "That's right, most of Vantoni Industrial's assets are under the name of a company called Tianhai Trading. The two companies invest in each other and raise their valuations. In fact, this company does not. How many assets? They use bubble assets to make the outside world feel that they are huge, and then enclosures everywhere. It is said that they have now begun to seek backdoor listing in the international arena. Isn't this just cheating everywhere?" Zhang Fengxia's expression was rather playful. She stared at Lu Feng and said, "You have met your opponent, and Li Gui has met Li Gui. It's a bit like a Ponzi scheme." Lu Feng laughed. This was really an era of ghosts and monsters. He had heard a joke before. He went to the richest man first, saying that he was the son-in-law of the president of the World Bank and reached a cooperation agreement. After that, I went to the president of the World Bank and said that I was the partner of the richest man. The methods of this group of people are still relatively clever. The most important thing is that they have a relatively large backing and can indeed realize cash. This Tianhai Trading has another shell on the New York Stock Exchange," Manager Wang said meaningfully. "You can't break the layers of turtle shells." "Then we can't wait to die." Lu Feng looked at Hao Dongren and said, "What does Mr. Hao think?" Hao Dongren had a look of despair. In the past few days, as he learned about the twists and turns behind this Vantoni Industrial, he became more and more desperate. The devil knows how many people's interests are involved here, and too many leather bag companies are covering this company. "Mr. Hao, I don't think you should be too idealistic, expecting this company to go public and raise money abroad, and then cut a wave of capitalists' leaks and get out of it." Lu Feng lit a cigarette, feeling amused, and said, "Capitalists are also graded. To be honest, no one in China can do it on the New York Stock Exchange. If Mr. Lu has any ideas, please tell me directly. Simple, shake it out. No matter how big his background is or how many twists and turns he has, let him shake it all out, and let the whole country take a look. Under the bright light, all bulls, ghosts, snakes, and gods have to be avoided. Then Mr. Lu will worry more. If there is anything that needs me, I will definitely do it." After discussing for a long time, Lu Feng was sent to the gate of the factory, where they shook hands, left their phone numbers, and waved goodbye. Manager Wang watched Lu Feng leave and said, "Who is this? A man with the same ambition as Vantoni Industrial, but he has no direct competition with us. Do you think he can handle Vantoni Industrial?" Manager Wang shook his head disdainfully, and said, "Let's find out now whether Wantung Industrial is trying to fool foreign devils by enclosing the land, or whether it really intends to work in the furniture industry. As for this kind of stuff you find yourself, don't pay attention." Hao Dongren sighed and didn't say a word. Now he has no masters. As long as it's a straw, he is willing to hold on to it. Of course, he naturally won't put all his hopes on Lu Feng. On the way back, Zhang Fengxia was driving and saw Lu Feng sitting in the co-pilot without saying a word, as if she was frightened by the energy behind this incident. "Give it up, don't talk about you, it's just that I don't have any recruits. It's too involved, and it's no longer local. I guess from here all the way to the Pearl River Delta, to Xiangjiang, there is a chain of interests. I'm thinking, how can I kill them?" Lu Feng didn't have much expression on his face. This kind of scam should not be too much, but it's just unlucky for a liar like them to meet Lu Feng. "You still kill people?" Zhang Fengxia looked like you were crazy. "Turn around and go to Wantung Industrial Office," Lu Feng said solemnly. "What are you going to do?" "Go directly to warn them, get out as soon as possible, or don't blame me for being rude." "What?" Zhang Fengxia slammed the brakes to stop the car, looked at Lu Feng and said, "Are you okay? Why do you let people get out of here? They don't have a clean ass." "Not clean. Do you have evidence?" "I can make up some. As long as there is a storm of public opinion, an investigation will be launched." Zhang Fengxia covered her head with her hands, looked at Lu Feng like a lunatic, and said, "You are an outsider, you are really not afraid of death by staying here." "I'm going to die, and there's no other way. If I want to get the land in the shortest time, I have to take risks." Lu Feng lowered the car window, lit a cigarette, and said, "Let's go." Zhang Fengxia started the car, turned around and galloped away. Along the way, she was trying to persuade Lu Feng to give up. In fact, from the very beginning, she learned that there was this company, and when it first started to attract investment, she had occupied the quota, so she should directly change the plan. Instead of fighting with others. Southeast Road, one of the few high-rise buildings in the urban area, is mainly used for office buildings, and some are offices of foreign companies. Going directly to the 8th floor, there were several large characters hanging on the door of a large office. In the Vantoni Industrial Office, Lu Feng knocked on the door, and a man in his 30s walked out. "What are you doing?" "Look for you, the person in charge, to talk about something." The other party glanced at Lu Feng, turned around and walked in. After a while, he came out and opened the door. He said, "Boss Feng is in the office." Lu Feng pushed open the office door and saw a man wearing a suit, but his face was full of air, his collar was open, his feet were on the table, and the tattoos on his clothes were faintly visible. "What are you doing? Are you the person in charge of Wantung Industrial?" Lu Feng frowned. "Yes, I don't look like that." "What's the matter with you?" "That's right, I'm the owner of GMA Foodstuff. I'm very interested in the local investment promotion project recently, but your company occupies the quota. I'm here to tell you, it's better to get out, I have a lot of information about your company. Information, including some leadership participation, black box operations, illegal acquisition of land, backdoor listing, deceiving shareholders, Lu Feng said word by word. Zhang Fengxia looked at him and sighed in her heart that this person was a born liar. She didn't even blink an eye when she lied, standing in this arrogant roar. People who didn't know thought it was from a special investigation bureau, and they just had to show the documents. Handcuff this person directly. The other party was also shocked by Lu Feng, took off the leg on the table, looked at Lu Feng in panic and said, "What does this have to do with me? I didn't do anything." "I know, you just need to report these things. This is my business card. Let them contact me and tell your leaders by the way. If you don't withdraw from this investment promotion, don't blame me for being rude." Lu Feng put the business card on it. He turned his head on the table and left. At dinner time, Lu Feng ate with his head down and didn't say a word. Zhang Fengxia looked at him and said, "If something happens to you, I won't save you, and it probably won't save you. No need, I have my own measure." "Have you always liked to risk your life since you were a child? From your business plan to the things you've done now, every one of them can be done by a normal person. Anyway, this is the first time I've seen it, and others have occupied some places. And the background is very strong, the company is also very large, the way of thinking of normal people is to go around, you are the first to fight to the death." Lu Feng looked up at her and said, "I think I can win. As long as I have a little chance to win, then I will win. I'll call uncle later to ask, or else I won't feel at ease with your money." Zhang Fengxia didn't say anything more after eating. She didn't have much hope for Lu Feng. Not to mention Lu Feng, even if she tried her best to do it, she might not be able to do it. Just after returning to the hotel, the receptionist at the front desk rushed to Lu Feng and said, "Mr. Lu, I have your phone number, and the caller number has been put on your bedside." "Who called?" Lu Feng asked. "The other party said it was your manager, surnamed Gao, and someone who claimed to be your wife." "Okay, I see." Lu Feng walked towards the elevator. Back in the room, Lu Feng called Zhang Xiaoyan first, and talked about some family matters. Recently, Song Swimei called her, still wanting to arrange her two brothers into the factory. Lu Feng directly refused. Duo has found a kindergarten and recently entered school. Zhang Xiaoyan has met several sisters, who eat and eat every day and go shopping. Lu Feng could hear that she was a little bored, but he was at a critical moment, and it was impossible to accompany her at home. "Hang up the phone and call Gao Jiwei." "Mr. Lu, I have good news for you. Li Helong's team is progressing very smoothly. The relevant conditions have been negotiated almost, and they will be finalized in the next few days." Gao Jiwei's voice was excited. "That's good. You've been staring at the assembly line recently, and you're cultivating new factory managers. If you really can't do it, you can poach people from some restructured state-owned enterprises and put mature products on the market first, you know. Don't worry, what about the progress on your side? The last 3 people just left yesterday, and they have already gone to the Northeast and North China. It's not going well for me. A company has taken up the quota and is mediating recently. It shouldn't be a big problem. That Zhang Fengxia is not a professional negotiator. Basically, I'm busy." Lu Feng was a little helpless. Professional, familiar with these processes, he will not be so tired. "I really can't find anyone, otherwise I wouldn't be looking for her. By the way, that..." Gao Jiwei on the other end of the phone hesitated for a long time. "Say anything. Mr. Zone called me today and asked me how I was doing here. He also talked about you. He admired you in his words and wanted to talk to you." Lu Feng raised his brows, feeling that something was not right. Why did he seem to want to dig Gao Jiwei back? "There are some things, don't say more, we are competitors now, you are sandwiched between the two, I can understand, if he calls, I will chat with him. After chatting for a while, Lu Feng hung up the phone and sat on the bed in a daze. What did Mr. Zone call himself for? Demonstration? Dig people? Lu Feng was a little confused. The two companies haven't really done it in the market, but everyone smelled a tinge of. While thinking about it, the phone suddenly rang. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 113. Lu Feng looked at the phone and hesitated for a while, but picked it up anyway. Hey, who is it? Is it Boss Lu of GMA Food Stuff? There was a thick man's voice on the other end of the phone. It's me, President Zong of Wahaha, who has long known about the existence of Boss Lu, and I have admired it for a long time, especially Gao Jiwei's departure, which surprised me. I don't dare to admire it. Mr. Gao has his own ideas. When he comes out to work, he must be given more money to work for whom. As for what company to use to cultivate and what loyalty to bind individuals, it is a bit forced, right? I have admired you for a long time, and I have heard some of your stories. You are a leader in the children's food industry, Lu Feng said politely. No, now that state-owned enterprises are taking the lead, I'm just a little bit famous locally. I'm not angry about Gao Jiwei, and I'm not so small-minded. I just think he's a little underpowered. I heard that President Lu has big move. Ha ha ha, I don't dare to make a big move. Compared with your 80 million to buy a factory, I'm just playing a small game. I also heard that you are going to advertise on TV this year, and I also heard that you have a lot of products. Will they go offline one after another? You have the product, too. It's good for everyone to know it, but your risk is a little bigger. I know a little bit about the wonton industry. It's a hard bone. Even if Mr. Lu takes it down, you have such a high leverage. The ability to resist risks is too poor, and the fragile is like paper. High leverage leads to high returns. If you know a little about me, you should know how I got started. Of course I do, a liar. I can't say that. I started from scratch. When I am successful, I will write a book about my hardships when I started a business and use it to inspire younger generations. Young man, don't think too much about it. Your dozen or so factories will be built first, and then they will be turned around, and then you will have the opportunity to compete with me. Of course, if you are willing to sell, I will take over the dozen or so factories. Including your market, products, patents, and even your employees. I will not want you, you are too aggressive. Hearing this comment, Lu Feng laughed and said, I'm also very interested in the word wahaha. If Mr. Zong is free, he can come to GMA as a guest. I'm always welcome. I'm also waiting for you in Hangzhou. After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng didn't look good. Now he seems to have a feeling that the wind and rain are coming. The other party is right. Once he collapses, Wahaha can buy it directly, which is equivalent to marrying someone else. Clothes. Lu Feng thought for a while, then stood up and went to take a shower. It was late at night, and the cold winter was slowly fading away. In a villa, there were 6 or 7 people sitting. In the middle was a fat man with a big belly, wearing a tang suit and holding a string of beads in his hand. Sitting next to him was a thin man, his eyes gleaming. Today's office manager stood beside him trembling, and the atmosphere in the room was very depressed. Where did GMA food come from? Can't you do something like this? Mr. Kui, don't worry, Tiancheng Furniture is already under pressure, and there is a GMA food stuff here. I checked it, it is from other provinces. This year, it has acquired land all over the country, expanded production, opened a factory. I don't know what's going on, the thin man said. He said, let's get out. Yes, very arrogant. He said that he had some evidence, and he said a lot, which scared me. What evidence? Mr. Lu, did Xiangzhang leak it? Mr. Kui sat up straight, and the fat on his body swayed. He said that we have insider trading, leadership participation in shares, illegal acquisition of land, etc. It seems that there is also a stock market issue. Mr. Kui broke out in cold sweat, stared at Lu Zhenyi's and said, Mr. Lu, what should we do? Let's call abroad. What are you panicking about? Look at your potential. If he has evidence, he will come to us directly, and he will need to talk nonsense with an office scoundrel. Lu Zhenyi scolded, we earn foreign money. It's dollars, understand? What now? You go out first, go back to sleep when you should go to bed. Lu Zhenyi waved his hand. The atmosphere in the room fell into a dull mood. There was Lu Feng's business card on the table, and Mr. Kui looked at the phone, feeling a little flustered. He was also a local businessman, and he was a business broker. He has only started contacting these companies in the last 2 years. He knows what is going on here, but he himself does not know how long the chain of interests is. This company is a leather bag company. With the opening up, some ports in the coastal areas are seriously smuggled, and foreign industrial industries mature and low cost. The domestic enterprises are crushed, but the tariffs are relatively high. If you want to achieve dumping, you have to bypass the tariffs. High-quality wood has the same price as local low-quality wood, and it is rampant in the local market, and through backdoor listing, data fraud is carried out externally, and a group of underground financial companies in Hong Kong are supported, harvesting US dollars externally, and crushing the market internally. The industry earns $2. Not to mention how many people are involved in such a long chain of interests, and how terrifying the lack of supervision is. Mr. Kui thought about it for a while, and he was so scared that he couldn't sleep. This is also the reason why Wantung Industrial is the best in attracting investment. Should we deal with this matter? Report it to the top. Lu Zhenyi pondered for a while, waved his hand and said, let's hang out and rest. The next day, the weather was calm, and Lu Feng didn't get up until 3 days later. The breakfast room was about to be cleaned up, so he sat there lazily. Zhang Fengxia followed and stood aside and said, it's almost time for lunch. Just take a bite. Any news? I asked. It doesn't matter, if you can achieve a staged victory, he can help you and be a pusher. Zhang Fengxia sat down and said, don't underestimate this promise, I'm hard-working and hard to beat me. Grandpa's face has been gambled. I know you have credit. Yesterday, President Gao told me that those factories are progressing smoothly, and the 6 factories in the early stage should be all right, Lu Feng said while eating. I think you're still planning for the worst. Zhang Fengxia sat there peeling eggs and said, this is so evil, my uncle told me that the water is too deep, and he can't talk to the end. What kind of nonsense is this? Lu Feng frowned and said, is your uncle a leader or a second-rate? Shut up, my uncle is what you can say. Zhang Fengxia looked at him and said, what are you doing today? Sleep. Wait for the call. Lu Feng has been waiting for a call from Wantung Industrial, but until now there is no call from Wantung Industrial, which makes him a little anxious. It stands to reason that such a company must be riddled with holes inside. If there is a little trouble, there will be a reaction. A few bastards to warn themselves. The first wait was 3 days. Lu Feng also collected some data on the company from the side, last year's revenue, number of employees, partners, etc. One of the most bizarre figures is that Vantoni Industrial's turnover last year was as high as 800 million yuan. There was only one raw material partner called Wei Timber, but this supplier's turnover last year was less than 20 million yuan. After Lu Feng looked at the comparison of the data, a music instantly sounded in his mind. You are creating something out of nothing, secretly Chen Kang, imagining out of thin air, fabricating out of thin air. There are problems here, there are big problems, and such a large shipment volume is actually true. The goods are not only sold domestically, but also exported to Southeast Asia. This company even has several international brands under its name. There were a lot of documents stacked on the table. Zhang Fengxia walked in with a cup of coffee, leaned against the wall to look at Lu Feng and said, "Are you going to be a commercial spy? I've become a data collector now, you say, yes, don't you have to pay more?" Lu Feng sorted out the documents and said, "If they don't come to me, they take my threats as farts, so don't blame me for being rude. I'll call the local newspaper later, and I'll break the news." "What did you find?" Lu Feng patted the folder and said, "They are suspected of smuggling, and I also suspect that the behind-the-scenes boss of the leather bag company opened an underground financial company in Hong Kong and was suspected of money laundering." "What?" "If it wasn't for Zhang Fengxia, the information would not have been available at all, and the other party would never have dreamed of it." Lu Feng released what he found in the information. Lu Feng called the local economic daily first, and it was a man who answered the phone. "Hello, this is the special line for appointments. Do you have any news to report? We will give you a certain amount of compensation and will definitely keep your secrets. I have a big news here, do you dare to accept it?" Lu Feng said. "There is no news that we dare not receive," you say. "What is involved?" the other party said very loudly. "Involving local investment promotion, some internal operations, and overseas money laundering." Beep beep. The phone hung up. A few minutes later, Lu Feng called several newspapers again. Without exception, when he heard what he wanted to report, all of them hung up. Lu Feng frowned. Although he expected the situation, he didn't expect it to be so extreme. Holding the newspaper, he looked at the special line for drafts and called. "Hello, the big poster appointment line, what news do you have for us?" "About investment promotion." After Lu Feng finished speaking, he didn't hang up on the other end of the phone. He was silent for a while and said, "Where are you now? Are you sure the information in your hand is accurate? How did we find you?" After reporting the address, Lu Feng asked, "It must be the front page headline tomorrow, and I must ensure that I am anonymous, and I will maximize the spread of the situation." "Don't worry, if this is true, it must be a front page headline. Our reporter will be here soon, and we have several brother newspapers who will follow up the interview together." "Okay, I will wait for you." Lu Feng hung up the phone with a smile on his face. "If you want to do something, then do a big thing. I can't get the things I can't get, and no one wants to take it lightly. I gave you the opportunity to wait for the phone to talk, but the other party doesn't call, so don't blame me." High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 114. More than 10 minutes later, 7 or 8 people arrived downstairs. There were men and women, and they went straight upstairs. Tea and some simple fruits were already set in the parlor on the 7th floor. Lu Feng was sitting there drinking tea in a formal suit, while Zhang Fengxia was sitting on a chair in the corner with a cup of coffee in her hand. She was wearing suspender jeans and looked a bit typhoon in Hong Kong. "Moving interests is no less than murdering parents," Zhang Fengxia whispered. "You're right, they moved my interests." Several people pushed open the door and walked in. Lu Feng stood up and said, "Hello, is this the editor-in-chief Wei Lan?" "Hello, I am." A woman in her 30s walked out, wearing glasses, giving her an intellectual feeling, came over and shook hands with Lu Feng, and introduced, "These are my colleagues, some of them are brother newspapers, there are 4 in total. For the solemnity of this interview, we will record it, do you mind?" "It's okay." Lu Feng pointed to the sofa next to him and said, "Sit down." "Your name?" "This has nothing to do with the content of the interview, including my occupation, family situation, and the purpose of exposing it." It has nothing to do with the interview. Lu Feng looked at the people present and said, let's talk about this directly. For investment promotion, a special amount of money and land will be allocated, as well as tax exemption conditions, but most of these indicators are occupied by a company called Wantung Industrial. Is there insider trading? Yes, and there is a problem with this company, and the whole process has not been announced to the public. This company mainly produces furniture, but there is only one raw material supplier. The company's turnover last year was more than 20 million, while Vantoni Industrial sold a few billion. Lu Feng managed the words very well. Many things were pointed to, and he didn't pierce that layer of window paper, hiding many of the more acute problems. The entire interview lasted for 2 hours. Lu Feng watched them leave and stood at the door for a while. You just count on them. Are you going to spread the matter from one place to the whole country? When you get serious, you won't be able to get it. It has only been a few years to attract investment, and everything that is done everywhere is bad. Now, anyone with brains knows it. Zhang Fengxia looked at his back and said, check it out, are you feeling better? Lu Feng turned his head to look at her and said, I bet those people won't let me make trouble. Zhang Fengxia stayed on the spot, and sneered for a while, mad, those people met you with blood mold. I have heard some things, and some people had a car accident for no reason. It's normal. The last time I went to Baiwan City to get a raw material factory, a guy was hit by a car and killed. Lu Feng took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit a cigarette, leaned against the door and said, we are seeking wealth at risk, and now we are in business. It is very easy to do. There is no threshold. You can do business if you are ruthless. There is gold everywhere, and it will not work in more than 10 years. With the industry threshold, to put it bluntly, now everyone is muddy. Zhang Fengxia looked at him, her whole body was a little dazed, there was an indescribable taste in him, bold, careful, daring and brave, with a kind of heroic taste. Back in the room, Lu Feng called Hao Donggren, and he did everything he had to do. He couldn't be idle. Hey, Mr. Lu, how is it? The newspapers will report on these things tomorrow. I only need you to do one thing now. I will be interviewed by TV stations or newspapers tomorrow to talk about the living conditions of furniture companies. It is not necessary to mention Wantung Industry by name. Just point out the side. Just come. Is this useful? If we don't see the effect first, we'd better talk in private. It's not good to make a fuss. Hao Donggren's voice was full of counsel. Lu Feng frowned a little. Obviously he knew a lot about the twists and turns in it, otherwise he is such a big boss. He is definitely at the level of a local snake, and he is afraid of being like this. If you want to do things, you have to be ruthless. Otherwise, people won't let you down. I'll tell you, now I've done everything I need to do. I'm here to charge. You don't even want to show support. Lu Feng took a deep breath and said, Mr. Hao, everyone wants to be a fisherman, but someone has to be a fish, right? I've already thrown myself out. You can't just wait for the profit and take all the risks. Besides, if you say something yin and yang, they can kill you. You don't have the guts at all. You should go home and coax the child. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he hung up the phone and lay on the bed with his eyes closed. Early the next morning, the headline of the local poster was, Why is there so much shady about investment promotion? The content must not be unpleasant, the topic is close to the red line, and the whole article is more than 3,000 words, which can be said to be intricate. After reading the newspaper, Lu Feng felt a cold sweat on his back, and he had to admire the reporter's writing style. Immediately afterwards, Hao Donggren was interviewed in the morning, mainly talking about the safety of furniture and the inside story of the industry. In an instant, the newspapers were placed on the desks of many local leaders, and many people were sweating profusely after reading it. The atmosphere was a little tense. In the villa, Mr. Kui felt his hands trembling while looking at the newspaper. All morning, the phone kept ringing, and people kept calling to ask what happened and who leaked the internal information. Lu Zhenyi's is one big and too big. The local TV station is broadcasting an interview program, and how Dong Gren is bragging to the camera, and he is referring to wonton industry inside and out. Mr. Lu, someone called and asked us to avoid the limelight. I'm done with the business. You don't need to ask, you know it's the owner of GMA Food Stuff. This guy is a bit ruthless. He's afraid that he hasn't suffered, so let him calm down. There's nothing wrong. Lu Zhenyi's face was dark. Ruthless. What are you doing? Mr. Kui was trembling. What the hell are you thinking? Am I the kind of person who kills? Lu Zhenyi said angrily, they're all businessmen. To put it bluntly, it's just about money. Let's talk about it in a bureau. There is a business association recently, invite him to go. Not only that, Boss Lu, but also how Dong Gren to be a peacemaker. He is as timid as a mouse and can be used. Okay, I haven't slept well in the past few days, I always feel flustered, and I feel like something big is happening, Mr. Kui said with a pale face, panting heavily, and looking very frightened, especially for today's newspaper. Hurry up. To put it bluntly, where did he get the information? Shut up, don't come out with this courage, go do things, Lu Zhenyi said solemnly. Throughout the day, the local business community has been discussing this matter, and there is already a lot of uproar in private. Everyone knows what's going on, but they can't say it publicly. Many people have already circulated that Lu Feng, an outsider, can only say that if he wants to swallow this cake, he must have this stomach. Many people don't think he has the stomach in private. An invitation letter was placed at the front desk of the hotel. Lu Feng went for a run outside. When he came back, the front desk handed it over to him. It was sent by a gentleman. At 7 o'clock this evening, there is a business association in the activity center beside Tianlan Lake. The gentleman said that you must go to solve the things you want to solve, so as not to pay find a reporter and speak yin and yang in the newspaper. These are his original words, the receptionist hurriedly explained. Okay, I get it. Also, there are a lot of people from newspapers who want to interview you this year, so I left a phone call here, I hope you will call them back. No, I won't be interviewed today, I'll talk about it tomorrow, Lu Feng said and went upstairs. Sure enough, the power of the media is still strong. As soon as the newspaper came out, the invitation card came immediately. Just as I walked to the door of the room, the door of Zhang Fengxia's room next door opened. Mr. Hao called in the afternoon. How? Is the TV interview effective? Lu Feng asked. People from Wantong Industrial have come to him. He will also attend the networking party tonight, and will act as a mediator between you and Wantong Industrial. What? Lu Feng frowned and said, he agreed. He said he was threatened, and the other party wanted to mess with him. He was afraid, so he agreed. Oh shit, Lu Feng slapped his thigh angrily, it's really a pain in the ass to work with such a soft head, he sighed. What he means is, his factory, his market, no more? Wait for bankruptcy? Or wait for a low-priced acquisition? How do I know? There is another thing, that report is too powerful. My uncle called me and asked me if you wrote it. I admitted, he has to take it easy when he says anything. What I see is the tip of the iceberg, and there must be a degree. After Zhang Fengxia finished speaking, she looked at Lu Feng. What do you mean? There's something about your uncle here. How do I know? But I can hear it, it's very involved. What are you going to do now? You need such a large land, and what conditions do you need? Lu Feng nodded and said, yes, now I'm more certain to make Wantong Industrial give in. I'm barefoot and afraid that he will wear shoes. Go to the banquet, eat and drink for free. In the evening, Lu Feng rented a BMW and drove straight to Tianlan Lake. Winter is slowly receding, and the air is filled with the breath of spring. You can clearly feel the restlessness of spring. It is not so cold, and it is a bit moist. You only need to put on a few thin clothes and it will be very comfortable. Even a touch of green can be seen in the night. Tianlan Lake has been thawed, and opposite is an activity center. The lights are bright, and the lake water is even more dazzling. Luxury cars have been gathering one after another. The people who came tonight actually wanted to see if this foreigner named Lu Feng had 3 heads and 6 arms and dared to do such a thing. Hao Dongren had already arrived, standing there eating in a suit and leather shoes. The expression on his face was not very happy, and he looked around helplessly. He is unwilling that his factory will slowly collapse in the next few years, but knowing some inside information, he is even more afraid that something will happen tomorrow. People are fish and meat and I are swordsman. He also hopes that he can be as handsome as Lu Feng. He is not cowardly, but his thighs are not thick. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 115. The so-called sorority is just a way of getting to know people, which is convenient for matchmaking. There are even disco parties, industry academic exchanges, and various names. In this era of bulls, ghosts, snakes, and gods, as long as you hang out, there are countless gatherings waiting every day. With the opening up, the first group of people have been impacted by the Western world, resulting in excessive openness, while ordinary people are still conservative. A huge visual gap. The phrase entertainment to death is shouted out now. The venue is very spacious. There are some tables and chairs. Not far from the buffet, there is an empty space for dancing. Standing at the door, Lu Feng looked around, turned his head and said to Zhang Fengxia, "I'll just say it's not a high-end place. What kind of evening dress do you want to buy? It's just a waste of evening dress. Come in, I didn't expect this to happen." The receptionist on the side said, "Sir, please show the invitation." Lu Feng handed over the invitation card in his hand, and his eyes were already on Hao Dongren in the corner. He had to pull Hao Dongren back into his line tonight. Lu Feng understands very well that he, a foreigner, has no weight here at all. If he wants to make the other person jealous, he must increase his weight. "Are you President Lu? Is that the boss of GMA Foodstuffs from other provinces?" the receptionist asked excitedly. "Yeah, what's the matter?" Lu Feng wondered. He is not a star, let alone the richest man. Why is he so excited? The receptionist stood up and shouted, "Lu Feng from other provinces is here." Everyone in the audience turned their heads and looked at the door, their eyes burning. Even Lu Feng was a little scared when he saw this kind of battle. "What's the situation?" Zhang Fengxia asked in confusion. "I do not know. Mr. Lu, come in quickly, I've admired you for a long time." A middle-aged man walked over with a smile on his face, especially to please Lu Feng. "Hello, hello," Lu Feng walked in and said politely. "You make children's food, right? I can develop some products with you. This is my business card. Our products are similar to Wahaha's nutritional solution. We have a factory with about 1,000 people here." A dozen people gathered around, handing business cards to each other, and all of them were medium-sized business cooperation, and the profits were quite considerable. If Lu Feng saw these projects last year, he would have been happy to sleep. But the more business cards he had in his hand, the more he felt that this was weird. He didn't know his life well, so how could there be a door-to-door business? He didn't think that GMA food had become a golden sign. "You are trying to make a fortune, and a bunch of people send money to your door," Zhang Fengxia muttered. "Sweet dates are delicious, but I'm afraid the sap won't last," Lu Feng said, stuffing a stack of business cards into the trash can, and strode towards Hao Dongren. "Big brother, are you crazy? Everyone is watching. You throw your business card in the trash, isn't it too contemptible?" Zhang Fengxia hurriedly reminded that it was a slap in the face of those people, and it was a very rude thing. Some people have already seen it, and his face is extremely ugly. In addition, the receptionist shouted just now, and everyone present was curious about who Lu Feng was. Why had he never heard of it? Who is this person? He's so cool, he even threw his business card in the trash. Mr. Zhang, do you know him? Who are you? You still curry favor with him? I flattered him. He's not far from death. Mr. Zhang gritted his teeth as he spoke, but just now he ran up to him with a full smile on his face, handed his business card to Lu Feng with both hands, and said some projects he expected to cooperate with. What's the situation? Who is this? I've never heard of this person. Out of place, the owner of a food company. What the hell is a non-local person? Damn, call someone, break his leg. What do you know? Have you read the newspaper today? It's the report that named Wantong Industry. Look, I also think it's too dark, that may be true, but dare to take it on the stage and say that's real bullshit. Wantong Industrial is Mr. Lu busy, understand? Everyone, look at me, I'll look at you, no one will ask any more questions, they don't want to swim in this water, many times they know some things are not good for themselves. As a businessman, I know best what to know and what to do shouldn't know. Hao Donggren saw Lu Feng walking towards him and wanted to hide, but he was already in the corner and had nowhere to go, so he could only walk towards the toilet with his head down. Lu Feng followed into the men's bathroom, and Zhang Fengxia could only stop. What's the situation? Lu Feng looked at him and said, what's wrong? Someone threatened you? No, it's not appropriate for us to meet now. Mr. Kui and Mr. Lu will come over in a while, sit down and talk, there's nothing we can't talk about, right? Hao Donggren felt a little guilty when he spoke. What are you talking about? I'm just telling you that they smuggle wood from abroad. This is a matter of nails. Their company has the right to use foreign brands, cheap wood, plus foreign brands, directly into the high-end furniture market. Occupied, what are you going to develop? You just wait for bankruptcy. Lu Feng looked at him angrily and said, why are you so stubborn? Mr. Lu is not easy to talk, what money is not money, health is the most important. He's going to break your leg? You're such a big boss today, and you don't have a lot of scumbags. Lu Feng looked at him in disbelief. I'm a serious businessman. Lu Feng was a little speechless, there are serious business people these days, it's really hell. The cooperation that those people gave you is the sweetness that Mr. Lu gave you. What he means is that he will not let you come in vain, take those cooperation orders and leave, and you can say hello if you have anything in the future. Hao Donggren whispered, everyone is their own. Since it's my own, why can't you give me the land, loans, and policies? He talks about his own people, and he eats the most. Give me some leftovers. Can you be tougher? Lu Feng looked at him angry. After calling one, he said, you brow and big-eyed guy betrayed, what did you say that day? I'm really afraid that something will happen. I've been a good boy since I was a child. If something happens. Hao Donggren said in a hurry. Lu Feng could see that it was not a matter of a day or two for Mr. Lu to make a big impact on the side, so Hao Donggren didn't even have the consciousness to resist, so he could only do it himself. Tell me what's going on over there, you can be an insider. When will he come? Lu Feng asked. It should be now, I advise you, don't make trouble. As soon as Hao Donggren finished speaking, the toilet door was pushed open, and a man in a striped suit walked in, with a big back, giving people a feeling of not being angry and arrogant. Mr. Lu, Hao Donggren shrank his head in fright when he saw the man. Lu Feng looked at him, and the other party was also looking at Lu Feng. In terms of momentum, Lu Feng had already lost a step. This is Mr. Lu, right? I originally wanted to use Mr. Hao as an intermediary to get to know some Mr. Lu, but I didn't expect to see anyone today, and only after I asked, I found out that the two are actually in the toilet, and I don't know how to plan in the toilet. What? Lou Jennings asked with narrowed eyes, a murderous look on his face. To the restroom. Going to the toilet, Lou Jennings raised his wrist and glanced at his watch. It's been 27 minutes. Are you full of shit? Mr. Liu, you dress like a dog, why are you so rude? Lu Feng looked at him with a disdainful smile and said, Hao and I are always best friends, you have to keep track of how long you spend in the toilet. I just want to know what the two of you are doing in the toilet, Lu Jennings shouted sharply. The door of the toilet was pushed, and a group of people could be vaguely seen crowded there, but Lu Feng would not think that those people came to use the toilet. Hao Donggren's hands were shaking as he stood there, his forehead was covered with sweat, and he didn't dare to look up. Men are always competitive. Lu Feng patted Hao Donggren on the shoulder and said, BB is the size, or Mr. Lu will also take it out and compare it. Ha 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 ha. Lu Jennings laughed, patted Hao Donggren's shoulder with his hand and said, I won't ask whether you two won or lost. Mr. Hao said he wanted to introduce Mr. Lu to me. It's not good in the toilet. Let's go out. Going out, in fact, there is no need for Mr. Hao's recommendation at all. I have been in love with the controller of Wantung Industrial for a long time. Lu Feng looked at Lu Jennings and said with a smile, I didn't expect Mr. Lu to receive my signal, it seems that you are not too good. It's just an agent. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he walked out. Lu Jennings' face became gloomy, and he said to Hao Donggren, someone has decided for you. I heard that someone put the kindness in the trash can. I have all my good words. He is a foreigner and doesn't know your majesty. Looks like I have to let him know. Lu Jennings snorted and walked out. There was a group of people standing at the door. The front was a group of men in suits, and the back was a group of guests, all waiting to go to the toilet. Mr. Kui also stood at the door and waited. Seeing Mr. Lu coming out, he hurriedly stepped forward and asked, what do you think of this person? Exposed domineering. Domineering, Mr. Kui's face trembled. He had not heard such a high evaluation from Mr. Liu's mouth for a long time. It was destined to be a battle between dragons and tigers. Lu Jennings walked out, surrounded by polite voices, many people were handing business cards, and all the pens were bowing their heads. It is such a person, but in the local area, he is the existence of the wind and the rain. It is said that without him, there is nothing that cannot be done with a phone call. Whether it is in the province or the city, they must be afraid of him. A person who makes the broker to the extreme, mainly relying on relationships and connecting people. His appearance fee is sky high, and his dinners start at $1 million. At his dinners, you can meet the people you want to meet. Be what you want to do. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 116. There were more people on the scene. It was estimated that there were hundreds of people more than when Lu Feng first came. It seems that everyone who was supposed to come this evening has already come. In the vacant space, people have already danced ballroom dancing. The rhythmic music makes people feel nod frequently. Zhang Fengxia followed closely behind Lu Feng and asked in a low voice, what's the situation? I met a rogue. You were molested in the toilet. Lu Feng stopped and turned his head to look at her, his expression full of teasing and ridicule. It's unlikely, you've grown up like this, and you can have multiple tastes. What do you think about all day long? Are you sure you are studying at Harvard University, not a gay country? Lu Feng said angrily, business hooligan, understand. You don't know, just now, a group of people blocked the door. They were fierce and vicious. They had the feeling of being a knife and axe in a grand banquet, which scared me, Zhang Fengxia said with fear. Is your family's hangman banquet in the toilet? Lu Feng looked at her speechlessly, and said, Hangman banquet is Xiang Yu's invitation to Lu Bang, and the cup is the number. I'm just a metaphor, Zhang Fengxia complained. Lu Feng picked up a piece of cake and ate it. He ate with his head down, without saying a word. Lu Zhenyi's was surrounded by a large group of people, touting each other politely. 10 minutes later, a waiter came over, looked at Lu Feng and said, Mr. Lu, isn't it? Mr. Lu said that you can let me get what you want, or you can tell the back chef to order. Mr. Kui, how there's always waiting for you there. I see. Lu Feng held a plate with a large lobster in it, and walked over with a knife and fork. Many people around him looked at him like this. Even Zhang Fengxia can stay away from him. President Lu likes to eat lobster, Lu Zhenyi said. I was a little busy just now, so I neglected President Lu. Lu Feng put the lobster on the table and said, It's all right, you're busy with yourself. I'm a straight man, so I'll talk straight to the point. Oh, Lu Zhenyi had an interesting look on his face, took off his suit jacket, revealing the vest inside, leaned on the chair and gestured at the person beside him, handed a cigar to it, and took 2 puffs. The set of moves is so smooth, it's really humming foreign. Say. It's a lobster, right? I want to eat it, but someone told me that this lobster was ordered by someone. I didn't accept it. No one saw it, so I ordered it. Why? By legs. Lu Zhenyi put his legs directly on the table, and Mr. Kui, who was beside him, said, Yes, just by legs. There was also a man surnamed Hao who told me that he had thick legs. I didn't accept it. I didn't know how thick he was. I expect this bite of lobster meat to live. If I can't eat this bite, I will die. Lu Feng glanced at the crowd and asked, Everyone, if you don't let me eat it, it will kill me. Hey, this is hard to do. Lu Zhenyi put his legs down and smacked his lips. It's really not easy to handle. What is eating is not living, so you have to eat this lobster meat. Mr. Lu gave it to steamed buns, but people didn't eat it. They threw them in the trash can. Mr. Kui patted the table with his hands and said to Hao Donggren, You ungrateful animal. There are lobsters, why do I want to eat steamed buns? Besides, if the steamed buns are not kept in order, it will be a problem. I am full, and everything is easy to discuss. It's good to discuss. Lu Zhenyi pointed at Lu Feng's nose with a cigar and said, Someone is not easy to negotiate. If you don't give lobsters to eat, go and report me for illegal fishing. It's not me, I didn't do it. Lu Feng waved his hands again and again. You also say that you are fishing illegally, so don't force your brother to be too ruthless. If it wasn't because this lobster was too important, I wouldn't be like this. I'll open it up. Price, 3,000 acres, tax-free, low-interest loan of 30 million, how about it? You're a lion, and there's only that little thing in the fishery. You took it all away. What am I to eat? Do you really think I made it out of mud? Lu Zhenyi took a cigar and said, Be kind and make money. I don't think you are. Normal person. Give you a face, a factory with 1,000 people. A factory with 1,000 people? Lu Feng frowned. Isn't that a small factory with a land of 100 or 200 acres? GMA's current factory can only cover the market of 3 or 5 cities, and it is still out of stock. If such a small factory is built here, it will erode the southern market. I am afraid that even the local market cannot satisfy. Lu Feng leaned on the chair and didn't speak. His face was not very good looking, and Mr. Kui and Lu Zhenyi on the opposite side didn't speak either. Their eyes were facing each other. There was a lobster on the table. Hao Donggren felt that the air was about to freeze, and his eyes were fixed. Lobster. A few minutes, as long as years. Lu Zhenyi exhaled a cigarette and said, Brother, you are a businessman, not a robber. Don't be too arrogant when you are out of town. Take good care. Many friends and many paths. If my friend just wants to take advantage of me, I don't need such a friend. I'm the kind of person who takes advantage of my friends. Lu Feng took the lobster, twisted his head, and ate the fat meat in a big mouth. I can guarantee that if you talk nonsense again, no one can guarantee your safety. You have already said that, you have been in close contact with the boss of Wantung Industrial for a long time, and you should know something. I am a broker and a businessman. Weddings can also be done. Hao Donggren was sweating profusely. These two people were too strong, and the most important thing was that they didn't want to die. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, Mr. Lu, I persuade him, he is a young man, young and energetic. What the hell are you calling a young man? Lu Feng put the lobster on the plate and said, I'll leave it here, only you can retreat. I'll be dead if I retreat, and I'm still going forward. Die, you said it all, you are a businessman, please give a message to your behind-the-scenes bosses, I will do this. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he stood up and left. The men in suits standing next to him immediately blocked Lu Feng's path, and one of them stretched out his hand and pushed him. Don't push people, it's like we're not good people. Lu Jeniz turned his head and said, let him go and talk about lobsters another day. He's ignorant, Mr. Lu, don't take offense. I'll go and persuade him. This man doesn't know the sky and the earth. I'll tell him a few words. Hao Donggren stood up and panicked, and ran up to him. In the parking lot by the lake, Lu Feng looked at the lake with some irritability. Zhang Fengxia, who was beside him, said, you were very arrogant just now. To be honest, I was a little bit empty. What cards do you have to fight with others? It's up to you. Lu Feng looked at her and said, isn't your uncle very cool? Zhang Fengxia originally thought that he would know martial arts or something, but it was a 1-to-10 match. She didn't expect to rely on herself. She was afraid after thinking about it. Wait a minute. Wait for me. Hao Donggren ran over, gasping for breath, lying on the roof of the car out of breath. What are you doing? Be a peacemaker. Lu Feng took out the cigarette from the driver's seat, lit one, and said, the peacemaker is playing 50 big boards on both sides, how about you, just hit me? Talk about something. Can you take me back? Don't you have a car? Zhang Fengxia wondered, I saw your car parked over there. It's too dark there, and there are groves, weeds, etc. by the side of the road, and there is no one. If there are a few people hiding, hug me from behind and drag me in, and I'll be finished. Hao Donggren said cautiously. Lu Feng and Zhang Fengxia looked at each other and were speechless. I'm sorry for your character. If you don't live for 1,000 years, get in the car. Lu Feng waved his hands and sat in the driver's seat. Along the way, Hao Donggren persuaded Lu Feng earnestly not to make trouble. If people are not happy, if something really happens, he must not follow him blindly, his life is more important. Zhang Fengxia sat in the co-pilot and looked at Lu Feng. She didn't know what he was thinking. During this period of contact, she found that she couldn't guess this person at all. The depth he showed sometimes was scary. Looks like we have to see the newspaper tomorrow. You still want to see the reporter? Zhang Fengxia felt Lu Jenny's unhappiness tonight, especially about the newspaper issue. Yes, he is unhappy, it means that he feels pain behind him, so he must continue to do it. We are by no means alone. There are a few monkeys riding on the tree of interest behind him. If you shake the tree, you will know that the more monkeys there are, the more opponents they have. We are on the bright side, and we can't figure out how many people are going to play the monkeys on this tree, and then shake the tree. After sending Hao Donggren home, Lu Feng drove directly back to the hotel, and Zhang Fengxia went back to the room directly. Thinking about the monkey and the tree that Lu Feng said, he decided to call Grandpa. Hey, Grandpa, are you asleep? Half an hour later, Zhang Fengxia hung up the phone. Her grandfather told her that Lu Feng was a funny person. His move was called taking advantage of the situation. Lu Feng really couldn't handle Lu Zhenyi's, but he wanted to tell everyone that he wanted to hum him. Many people are watching it secretly, and many people have a grudge against the monkey on this tree of interests. If he responds, he will take advantage of the situation, and both Lu Zhenyi's and Li Zhenyi's must step back, because the general trend is unstoppable. If those people in the dark are timid, he can't take advantage of the situation, and if he plays well, he will retreat. The current situation is to dance on the tip of a knife, but the greater the risk, the greater the profit. Once Lu Feng wins, he will win too much. Zhang Fengxia sat on the bed in a daze, her grandfather's words were still echoing in her mind. This man is very sophisticated, at least he is a veteran in the business world for more than 10 or 20 years, and he has a good sense of proportion. First issue a newspaper, then talk, if no agreement is reached, continue to issue a newspaper, pressing step by step. He? A 20-year business veteran, Zhang Fengxia muttered, he seems to be a year older than me, doesn't he? Old fox. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 117. Back in the room, Lu Feng took out some of the previous documents and sorted them out. He picked out some suitable documents and put them on the head of the bed. These information are more acute than the last exposure, which involves some detailed data, including last year's Vantoni Industrial's production location, the number of employees, as well as the leather bag company behind it, the actual controller, etc. Lu Feng flipped through the documents again, and reviewed it silently in his mind. After knowing the impact of throwing these things out, he just lay down and went to sleep. Early the next morning, Lu Feng called the newspaper and informed them that he went to the restaurant. It was early today. There were not many people there. A few chefs stood there yawning. One of them leaned against the wall and winked at the waiter. When he saw Lu Feng coming over, he straightened up in a hurry and said, "Dear VIP, this morning. It is good." Lu Feng was already tired of this kind of complicated service. Not only was the staff talking, but he was also tired of listening. He hummed weakly and said, "Help me cook a bowl of wontons." "Okay, what kind of stuffing do you want?" "Whatever." Lu Feng waved his hand and took the plate to get the eggs and other things, yawning in his seat, waiting for the waiter to bring the wontons over. Zhang Fengxia walked in, and when she saw Lu Feng, she asked, "Why didn't you call me for dinner? Do you have to be called to eat? Why don't you come by yourself when you're hungry?" Seeing the waiter coming with wontons, Lu Feng sat up straight and prepared to eat. "Give me this bowl." Zhang Fengxia reached out her hand to intercept it, sat opposite Lu Feng and said, "You cook another bowl for him." Lu Feng looked at her eagerly, the other party smiled, reached out and took the eggs and pickles in front of Lu Feng, and said with a smile, "Thank you." "What makes you so shameless?" Lu Feng asked. "I'm a woman. I'm 1 year younger than you. Is it okay to be your sister?" "Thank you, brother." Lu Feng didn't say a word, stood up and took another serving, then sat down to eat. "You're angry?" Zhang Fengxia looked at him carefully. "No, I'm such a big man, I just didn't wake up very much. I'll go back and squint for a while." Lu Feng stuffed the remaining half of the egg into his mouth. "Does your family run a business?" "No, farming." "Then have you been doing petty business all the time, making your way through the society after not going to school? Cannot remember? Have you experienced a lot of things, the kind you've seen a lot of wind and waves?" Lu Feng raised his head and looked at her. Zhang Fengxia, who has always been arrogant and stayed by her side with a teasing mentality, has become a curious baby. "What do you want to ask? Ask directly, don't go around. I just think you are a very suave person. Sometimes what you have experienced is more useful than your education." "I have Chinfu. Where did I learn the words? I am a very simple person. Education is always useful." Everyone will have experience. Not everyone has an education. Don't preach to me that studying is useless. Lu Feng picked up the wonton the bowl, took a sip of the soup and said, "Didn't you always look down on me? What's the matter?" "No, why can't I look down on you? I'm a childish man. I'm fine. Let's eat." "Did you contact the newspaper?" "It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I used to think that you were a headless fly, bumping around everywhere, running out of town alone, and then fighting with local snakes. There is no rule yet, but now I think you have a chance to win." "Did you call your grandpa? Or your uncle? How do you know everything? With your education, it's impossible to guess these things." Zhang Fengxia rolled her eyes at him and lowered her head to eat. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng appeared in the reception room in a formal suit. Today, more reporters came, even from provincial TV stations. However, Lu Feng refused and he didn't want to appear on the scene. After the last exposure, the sales of some newspapers went up, and their influence increased. Despite the pressure, the overall situation is very good, especially for journalists who hope this is the highlight of their careers. The living room was full. Lu Feng took out the folder and said, "I have very important data to disclose, and there are some concerns about the actual controller of this Vantoni Industrial, many of which are indirectly controlled, or even proxy mode." At noon, these reporters didn't eat, and they left in a hurry after the interview after 12 o'clock. Lu Feng sat there silent for a long time before standing up and leaving. He didn't know what position Zhang Fengxia's uncle was in, but he could give the information to show that the other party also wanted to do these things. Judging from the completeness of the information, it was not a day or two. Lu Feng was just acting as a gun for others. "Why do I always use people as a gun?" Lu Feng muttered to himself after reacting, making him happy. The next day, the headlines on the front pages of major newspapers were full of reports on investment promotion, and it was written that they would continue to follow up on the progress of Vantoni Industrial. The content was very spicy. Deeply stings the hearts of some people in the dark. The newspaper was spreading rapidly and was placed in front of countless people. Some people were so frightened that they almost lost their souls when they saw the content. Some people began to think deeply after seeing the report. All parties were surging, and the phone kept ringing. From the mainland to Xiangjiang, some people's interest chain was shaken by Lu Feng. Mr. Kui has been answering the phone all day, chattering endlessly in his ear, this requesting him to do this, that requesting him to do that. It is annoying to death. Lu Zhenyi's doesn't care at all, he just said that he drank too much and was still sleeping. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Zhenyi's was sitting on the sofa and looking at the newspaper in front of him. The phone on the coffee table rang. "Hello, I'm Lu Zhenyi's." "Mr. Lu, I heard something happened." There was a Zigong accent on the other end of the phone. "Yeah, a spoiler, but I think he's a gun." "Then do you think you can do it? Don't always make things a mess. Where did all the information come from? Some people are going to lose sleep tonight, so make sure you make money. Don't worry, this person, I've done it. Clean up, don't let anything happen again, you know. Don't worry." After hanging up, Lu Zhenyi's looked at President Kui and said, "Call him out and find a place to solve it. Do you want a piece of that Hao Dongren? Forget it, that man is as timid as a mouse and can't do anything, and he is the owner of Tiancheng Furniture. If something goes wrong, it will attract attention. Okay, you can go tonight too." Lu Zhenyi's nodded and stood up and went upstairs. Lu Feng was also waiting all day long. He knew that what he revealed in the report had already made some people uncomfortable, and it was normal to even be tempted to kill. Blocking people's way of money is no less than killing one's parents. When the phone rang, Lu Feng stared at him with wide eyes, a little panicked, answered the phone, but didn't speak. Came the voice of President Kui. "Hey, it's President Lu, I'm Lao Kui, tonight. Come out and talk about dividing lobsters. Hey, hey, do you hear? Lu Feng put the phone down. Then it rang again. He still answered it, didn't speak, and made 3 or 4 calls back and forth, all of which were from Mr. Kui. He seemed impatient. There was a knock on the door. Lu Feng stood up and opened the door. A waiter stood at the door and said, "Sir, you are the owner of GMA Food, your surname is Lu, right?" "Yeah, what's wrong?" "There is a package, someone asked me to give it to you," the other party said, and handed over the package in his hand, which was covered with a thick layer of yellow tape, which was very tight. "Who gave it to you?" "I don't know, it's just someone stuffed it for me. Let me give it to you, and let me ask it clearly before giving it." Lu Feng nodded, looking at the package hesitantly. "I don't care about my business, I'll go first. Also, can you not tell my supervisor, I'm afraid of being deducted?" "Don't worry," Lu Feng nodded and closed the door. "I squeezed it with my hand, and there was some paper inside. If I guessed correctly, it should be some secret information. I found a pair of scissors and opened it. There were some photos and a stack of documents, which recorded some bank accounts, shares, foreign countries. Account, some of the photos are party photos, and some are bed photos. Oh, these photos are rare. I don't know how many photos have been washed." Lu Feng picked up a photo and smiled. This is what he was waiting for. Liang Zhe's Hong. After looking through it, he put the information in his bag, picked up the phone and called Mr. Kui. "Hey, is that President Lu?" "It's me. Why didn't you speak when I called you just now?" Lu Feng blamed. "I'm talking, my throat is about to burst." "Then there is a problem with the phone. What's the matter?" "It's like this, we confessed, let's spread it out and say, you don't have to deal with those reporters, we will give you what you want. In order to show sincerity, let's meet and talk, how about it?" "Ken. It's not suitable for too many people to know about this. You'd better do it yourself, okay?" "That's it, I'll bring someone, female, okay?" "Okay, okay." That day, the activity center walked along the main road and drove for 10 minutes. There was a villa area called the Royal Garden Villa area. "I see you tonight." After hanging up the phone, Mr. Kui clapped his hands with a smile on his face. It was the first time he had seen such an easygoing person. He really cooperated. Lu Feng hung up the phone and took a shower. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, he knocked on the door of Zhang Fengxia's room. "Why?" Zhang Fengxia opened the door and asked in confusion. "Eat, I have work tonight, it's quite exhausting." Lu Feng raised his eyebrows at her. "Are you sick? Tell me such nasty things, you are a man with a wife," Zhang Fengxia cried. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 118. Lu Feng was a little dumbfounded by her scolding, and said, "I mean Mr. Kui treats you tonight. Just treat a guest, why is it so exhausting? Hungmen banquet. You don't know how to be a hooligan with me. I treat you like a big brother," Zhang Fengxia said with a childish stomping. Lu Feng laughed, reached out and touched her head and said, "I know, I also treat you as my sister, we are a family, come with me at night." "You already said Hungmen banquet, why should I go with you? It's so dangerous. The two of us are a family. Besides, this matter is basically over tonight. If it does, I will get what I want. If it doesn't work, I will admit it on the spot and pay them some money. Just change places." Zhang Fengxia thought about it and nodded and agreed. In her world, she had never thought of a thing that was so bad that she could kill someone. After 6 o'clock in the evening, the sky outside had just dimmed. After a long winter, the days and nights began to change slowly. The temperature had already started to go above zero. Lu Feng only wore a really good white shirt with a jacket over it. A long woolen coat with a gentleman's hat over his head. She walked to the car and waited for Zhang Fengxia. The other party went downstairs. Seeing his outfit, she couldn't help laughing and said, 007? You have the feeling of a spy now. It's cold at night, wear more clothes, Lu Feng said and got into the car, sat in the co-pilot and touched the photo in his arms, and he felt at ease. Walking down Tianlanhu Road, there is nothing around except dim trees, the moonlight is a bit bleak, and the lights of the car are swaying on the side of the road. Zhang Fengxia is a girl after all, and she is already holding the steering wheel nervously. Where is this? Where is the villa area? She turned around and said, are you sure you're on the right track? Go ahead. This road is too scary. It's in the wilderness, and there are those kind of bird calls. Did you hear it? Coo, coo, it's very ethereal. Zhang Fengxia wanted to say that it was like a ghost movie, but I dare not say it again. Keep going, where is the ghost? The car continued to drive forward, and a few minutes later, a dilapidated sign appeared in front of it, which was already somewhat rusted, and a few large characters could be vaguely seen, Royal Garden Villa area. Looking up, it was a villa, but it was all unfinished buildings, overgrown with weeds, and the bleak moonlight made people's back cold, and there was nothing at first glance. Let's go back, I'm afraid. Lu Feng opened the car door and walked out. Zhang Fengxia didn't dare to stay in the car alone, or even looked at the rear view mirror. She felt that someone was sitting in the back seat all the way. With a scream, he pushed open the car door and ran up, grabbing Lu Feng's arm with both hands and saying, don't scare me, I'm cowardly, let's go back, I beg you, I'll take half of the 300,000 yuan, okay. There is a light in front. Lu Feng saw the light of a flashlight in front of him. Walking forward, he found some worn-out furniture inside. A man with a flashlight looked around in a panic. Lu Feng looked at him and found that it was none other than Hao Donggren. Why are you here? Lu Feng wondered. Hao Donggren also stayed on the spot when he saw Lu Feng, and said, didn't you call me here? He was stunned for a moment, his face turned pale the next second, and he slapped his thigh fiercely and shouted, damn, let's go. Before leaving the abandoned villa, the messy flashlights were already shining over there. Mr. Kui ran over panting, followed by a dozen people, all of whom put their hands behind their backs and stared at Lu Feng indifferently. Like a butcher looking at livestock to be slaughtered. Why are you going? Mr. Hao, you've come here, don't you stay for a while? Mr. Kui stepped forward. Hao Donggren is also a man. He already understood the current situation, so he simply knelt on the ground, kowtowed repeatedly, and said with a sad face, Mr. Kui, spare your life, Master Kui, I will give you whatever you want, whether you want chairs or a factory, you speak. Mr. Kui looked at him with a smile on his fat face. He smiled and said, it's still you who are interested. In fact, Mr. Lu didn't intend to let you come, but then I thought, I have to let you participate, I have to let you watch it with your own eyes, don't worry, your life is good. Hao Donggren burst into tears with excitement and kowtowed. Seeing him like this, Lu Feng took a few steps back, flipped his windbreaker and sat on the shabby sofa, lit a cigarette, looked at Zhang Fengxia next to him and said, are you so scared? It hurts me. Zhang Fengxia's breathing became a little heavier. She stood by and wanted to talk about her grandfather's relationship, so these people should be careful, but she found that she couldn't even open her mouth. Compared with Lu Feng's calmness, her legs were shaking. Mr. Kui laughs. The little girl has never seen any big battles. What are you asking me to talk about? Lu Feng exhaled and said, as for Lu Zhenyi's, he is an agent, not to mention you, President Kui, that is, a errand, not qualified to talk to me. Clap clap clap. There was applause from behind the crowd, and Lu Zhenyi's came out, looking at Lu Feng with some admiration, no matter if he was pretending at the moment or really calm, just rely on this courage to make him admire. I feel sorry for you when you die in a foreign country, but it's normal, everyone can be crazy, provided that he has the money to be crazy. I already told you that day, what matters can be discussed privately, and no reporters are allowed. Talk. I already gave you the conditions that day, did you talk to me? I still have those conditions now. Lu Feng stared at Lu Zhenyi's and said, someone of us must give in, you can't convince your masters and godfathers, I can't convince myself. So, this matter has to be resolved. As long as you disappear from this world, everything will be resolved. Lu Zhenyi lit a cigarette, looked at Lu Feng and said, you are very handsome today, and you are very good looking. Mr. Lu, this matter has nothing to do with me. I don't know anything. I will transfer the factory to you tomorrow, and I will live in another place. Hao Dongran said with tears. Go to death and close your mouth, it's not your turn to speak. Lu Zhenyi used his finger to land on Feng and said, what do you want to say? We are the last listeners. Although you are brave and I admire it, it is useless. Nothing to say, you won't give it if you say it. Lu Feng put the cigarette in his mouth and took a breath. Lu Zhenyi threw the cigarette butt on the ground. Under the dim night, the bright red light seemed to burn a hole in the night, and he waved his hand impatiently. More than a dozen people took out their hands hidden behind them, and each of them approached Lu Feng with a dazzling axe in their hands. Hack him. Lu Feng looked at the people who came, took the last puff of cigarettes, and slowly exhaled the smoke. Zhang Fengxia pinched his hands blue, and he could feel her whole body trembling. I can die, but some information will be released after my death. You have to think clearly for your godfathers and masters, especially your godfather. Lu Feng's voice was loud, Liang Zhe's Hong. Lu Zhenyi's face turned pale for a moment, and he could see his panic. He turned his head and asked, where did you get the information? Who did you give it to? Leave it to someone. If I don't go back before dawn today, that person will send the information to the major newspapers. By the way, I took out a few photos from it, I don't know if you know the protagonist in it. Lu Feng pulled out the photo and handed it to the man who was only 7 or 8 meters away from him. Lu Zhenyi's hands trembled when he saw the photo, and he hurriedly put the photo in his pocket. Mr. Lu, I have your phone number. A little brother ran over, holding the big brother in his hand. Lu Zhenyi took the phone and kept saying yes, just hung up a phone call and picked up another phone call, and it could be seen that everything behind him had become a mess. After 10 minutes, the phone was gone. Lu Zhenyi stepped forward and asked, where did you get this information? I picked it up from the trash can. Pick it up? Has anyone seen this information? I'm the only one at the moment. If I don't go back before dawn, the whole country should know tomorrow, Lu Feng said indifferently. Mr. Lu, let's have a good talk, how about it? What? Now you know how to talk to me? Look at you guys, you scared me to death, the Axe Gang. Lu Feng turned his head and patted Zhang Fengxia's hand, comforting him. Lu Zhenyi waved his hand and told these people to go far away, and said, what do you want? These materials must be destroyed, or you won't be able to eat and walk around. I'm looking for money, everyone came out to do business, or those conditions, it's just that the original 3,000 mu has become 5,000 mu, and the interest-free loan is 40 million yuan. As for the information, it will naturally disappear. Of course, what will happen to those who throw the information in the trash can, I don't know, I'm not a group with them. I hope you'll keep your word. I am the most trustworthy person. Lu Feng stood up and patted him on the shoulder. Have you decided to let it go? No problem, Wantung Industrial withdraws. With a smile on Lu Feng's face, he walked towards the distance. Everyone made way. Hao Dongran stood up and followed. Walking to the side of the car, Lu Feng saw that Zhang Fengxia was still holding him, and said, let go, it's all caught. Why didn't you tell me you had a handle? It scared me to death, she sobbed as she spoke. It's okay in the dark, Lu Feng noticed that her pants didn't seem right, and asked, "What's wrong with the pants?" "Scared to pee." Lu Feng wanted to laugh a little, so he patted her on the shoulder in a hurry, pulled her into his arms and comforted a few words, "Let's go, drive back, so as not to have too many dreams at night." "My legs are shaking, you drive," Zhang Fengxia said and got into the co-pilot. "Mr. Lu, wait for me," Hao Dongren waved. Lu Feng raised his head and looked. It was another one with wet pants. It was late at night and the temperature dropped sharply, but Lu Feng still lowered the car window, and the car smelled of urine. Zhang Fengxia covered her face with her hands and bowed her head not to speak. Hao Dongren looked embarrassed. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 119. The phone is still talking non-stop, from Hong Kong to the mainland, from abroad to domestic. I don't know how many people's hearts are involved. For some people, this project is optional. It's okay. More people are concerned about who leaked the information and when they will stab themselves in the back. Some people are destined to be unable to sleep tonight, but it has nothing to do with Lu Feng. Early the next morning, in the breakfast room, Zhang Fengxia looked at Lu Feng with an ugly face. She was absolutely embarrassed last night, and she was still embarrassed. Even if she was studying abroad and her mind was more open, she still felt that she was a girl's home in front of men. Wetting your pants is a shameful thing. "Wonton, eat it." Lu Feng put breakfast in front of her. "Why didn't you tell me when you left last night?" "I thought about it last night. It doesn't matter if you take me or not. The reason why you took me is to use me as a safety line, right?" Zhang Fengxia sat down and said angrily, "Once those materials are fake or can't threaten Lu Zhenyi's, you can use me as a shield and call my grandfather or uncle." Lu Feng looked at her. This girl has lost her mind overnight, huh? Take people's money and help them eliminate disasters. Lu Feng looked at the breakfast in front of her with his eyes and said, "Eat. Tell me, I'm a girl, how scared I am. You have the bottom line. You can't sit there arrogant and play me like a monkey." Zhang Fengxia still felt lingering fears when she recalled the situation last night. "In your eyes, I'm an adventurous person?" Lu Feng asked while eating. "Isn't it? If all the factories you planned are in operation, you will successfully use 2 factories to move 16 factories. How dare ordinary people do it? The 6 factories in the first phase will directly produce new products. If the market effect of new products is not good, I will go bankrupt. I have never been a risk-taking person. I am very conservative. Like what happened last night, there is number 100% life safety is guaranteed. I don't dare to take your life to death. Stop this matter and go to the investment promotion office in a while." Lu Feng stopped talking and ate with his head down. Zhang Fengxia snorted coldly, "It's done, give me the money." Lu Feng didn't speak while eating. Zhang Fengxia had a bad feeling and said, "You don't want to default on your debt, do you?" "It's not over yet. You made me have a headache early in the morning," Lu Feng said, picked up the bowl and went to the next table. At 8 o'clock in the morning, local newspapers are provided in the hotel every day. Lu Feng flipped through the newspapers and saw this headline in a local daily. The headline was, "Thoroughly investigate the entire process of the Vantoni industrial project." It was found that the company had financial risks, falsely reported production capacity, and at the same time, there were financial frauds. The investigation found that the supplier of the other party only supplied 20 million last year, but falsely reported a turnover of 1 billion, misleading the investment promotion office to introduce it as a large and high-quality enterprise. The whole article is less than 2,000 words, short and concise. The first part is a brief description of the situation of Wantung Industrial, the next part is self-criticism, and then the next part is thanking the media for supervision, and at the end, he said some car rhetoric. Lu Feng knew that Vantoni Industrial was really suppressed. As for when it would change its name, or if a new leather bag company would make a comeback, it was none of his business. As long as it doesn't get in the way of his fortune, Lu Feng is easy to discuss, not to mention that there are too many things like this. He has seen too many twists and turns in the business for many years in his last life, and there are even companies with professional operators. Equity, funds, agency companies, entrustment, trusts, going around and around. The insurance policy makers felt that they were pretending to be muddy after reading it. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng packed all the company's materials in his bag, changed his clothes, and took Zhang Fengxia downstairs. There was the municipal office not far away, and Lu Feng walked over. It had been 10 days before he knew it, and Lu Feng saw the director again, but this time he saw him at the gate. "Oh, isn't this President Lu? Rare customer, fast, please come in," the other party smiled. There are several layers of folds superimposed on the corners of the eyes. "Director, don't do this. It's better for you to keep your stinky face. You'll make me feel like I've come to the wrong place. It makes me want to go in and sit down and start ordering." Lu Feng smiled. "Road. We just need an entrepreneur like you. It's hard to do now. Please help me to complete the task. I beg you, come in quickly," the other party said and pulled Lu Feng inside. Things went very smoothly, the data was reviewed, the forms were filled in, and everything was done in less than half an hour, and then it was submitted to the top for approval. "Don't worry, I estimate that it will be approved in about a week. If you don't want to run more, just stay here for a few more days. I've waited for so many things for such a long time. It's not bad for a few days. It's just a few days to stroll around here and travel." Lu Feng turned to look at Zhang Fengxia and said, "It's a blessing." Walking out of the door, Lu Feng felt that his whole body was indescribably relaxed. He took a deep breath and felt a little emotional. These days, he had been eating in the hotel. At noon, Lu Feng treated guests at a small shop on the street. Ordered 2 dishes and asked for 2 beers. "Let's go," Zhang Fengxia touched the bottle and said, "Can you check out now?" "What are you in a hurry?" Lu Feng picked up the beer and said, "Play for a few days first, and then pay you the bill. You will have to pay for your own food, drink, and entertainment for the next few days." As soon as Lu Feng finished speaking, the pager on his waist rang. He took out and glanced at it. It showed that the 5th factory had been negotiated, covering an area of 1,400 mu, with a loan of 9.6 million. Shen Yi's team has gone to Hebei. There was a look of joy on Lu Feng's face. The good news for those teams in the past few days has been continuous. The land they have obtained is basically not too bad. After dinner, I drove to the park not far from here, and Lu Feng felt boring for a walk. I heard people here say that the Yellow River is not far from here, and it would take at most an hour to drive there. Zhang Fengxia hasn't seen the Yellow River yet. She talks about the Mother River every day and wants to take a look. Lu Feng also wants to take a look. The two hit it off and drive straight away. The Yellow River is surging and the rapids are advancing bravely. The river has been surrounded by iron fences, and there are warning signs every few meters. Every year, people jump into the Yellow River to commit suicide. There are not many people, but there are still some people taking pictures with cameras. These people are definitely rich now, and the cameras in their hands are the annual income of ordinary people. The air was filled with water vapor, and the sound of the waves crashing made people tremble. Lu Feng stood not far away and looked at the scene in front of him. He felt a little emotional in his heart. No matter how powerful humans are, they are extremely fragile in front of nature. "I don't have a camera," Zhang Fengxia stomped her feet in a hurry. "Stop taking pictures, there will be opportunities to take pictures in the future," Lu Feng said casually, looked around, and suddenly saw a person in front of the iron fence, standing closer than anyone else, and relatively remote, lying there staring at the yellow river. "Hey, that person, don't fall off," Lu Feng shouted. Zhang Fengxia also found the man and called out twice to get him to step back. "What happened to that man? It feels like he wants to die and jump off." Zhang Fengxia glanced at Lu Feng and asked, "Would you like to take a look?" Lu Feng hurriedly waved his hand, "Don't look at this kind of thing blindly, in case he made up his mind and didn't want to live, and pulled himself when he jumped, it would really be a deadly injustice, and reminding him would be worthy of his conscience." After wandering around the Yellow River, Lu Feng felt that it is natural for women to love taking pictures. Zhang Fengxia has been complaining about not taking a camera, and there is no business for people to take pictures, just scattered people to watch the fun. Not developed into a tourist area. "Go back," Zhang Fengxia waved at Lu Feng a little irritably, "come back tomorrow, take the camera, I won't give up until the Yellow River, and I won't give up if I don't take pictures." When Lu Feng walked back, he instinctively turned his head and glanced at the place where the man was standing. Sure enough, he was still there. For a moment, I felt relieved. If he was gone, Lu Feng would definitely think that he had jumped off. On the way back, the figure had been haunting his mind. Lu Feng felt that he was sorry for others. He couldn't express his emotions. He always felt that if he tried to persuade him, he might be able to change a person's life. As soon as she got back to the hotel, Zhang Fengxia ran to rent a camera. Lu Feng went back to the bedroom and dialed the phone at home. "Hey, who is it?" Zhang Xiaoyan's voice came from the other end of the phone. "It's me. I'll go back in a week. Things have been settled here. How are you doing these days? You're already busy, but luckily I have so many, otherwise I'd be afraid to live by myself as a woman, so I'll just do that, find a kindergarten for Duo, cry every day when I go to school, lie on the ground and roll on the ground, I'll beat up when I'm angry." A few days Zhang Xiaoyan complained on the phone. "Dad, Mom hit me, come back quickly, she hit me, you can change your wife." Duo called on the phone. Hearing this, Lu Feng was dumbfounded, told her not to be angry with her mother, went back to buy her a gift, chatted for more than an hour, hung up the phone and went straight to sleep. In his sleep, Lu Feng was so violent that he stood by the Yellow River again. The man was still standing there. He turned his head to look at Lu Feng and smiled miserably. Then he jumped over the fence and jumped into the rushing Yellow River. "What?" With a scream, Lu Feng woke up from his dream. The sunlight outside wrote a golden word in the room through the cracks in the curtains. Bang bang bang. "Who? Me? What time is it, and you haven't gotten up yet? Come and accompany me to see the Yellow River. I rented a camera, so I can help you take pictures and keep it as a souvenir," Zhang Fengxia shouted outside the door. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 120. Lu Feng simply washed up before going out. Zhang Fengxia complained endlessly along the way. When she got to the Yellow River, Zhang Fengxia was excited like a child, hanging the camera around her neck and constantly adjusting the lens. "Come on, laugh, I bought a lot of film today," Zhang Fengxia said, turned her head and clicked, and took a picture. Lu Feng stood here again, not in the mood to take pictures, and looked at that position subconsciously. He is still lying on the fence, still the same. Many people around are paying attention, and they seem to want to go over to persuade them, but they hesitated for a while, and no one went. "Help me take a picture." Zhang Fengxia put the camera in Lu Feng's hand, and said to herself, "I'll make a pose, just click this." Lu Feng picked up the camera and sighed. Maybe he didn't want to die, but he just couldn't figure out some things. He picked up the camera and took a few pictures of Zhang Fengxia. I have to say that the girls couldn't stop once they started taking pictures. A roll of film quickly ran out. Lu Feng took pictures of the surrounding stones, trees, stone monuments, and the Yellow River. There was an uncle sitting on the steps smoking a cigarette next to him. He seemed to be in charge of the hygiene here. He shouted from time to time not to throw cigarette butts on the ground. The sun was a bit hot, and some girls in down jackets unzipped hotly. The man was still there, standing like a statue. The only change was smoking one after another. The uncle found that Lu Feng was looking over there, and said, "Don't look, he has been here for 4 days. I heard that he is bankrupt. If he disappears one day, maybe he will be relieved." "Have you talked to him?" Lu Feng asked in surprise. "I asked 2 questions. Then why don't you persuade him? I don't know how many people stand by the Yellow River every year, but whoever wants to stand there if there is a little bit of life, I also persuaded them at the beginning, but they are all full of despair, and they are all people who lead their lives into a dead end." "Let him go," the uncle sighed and lit a cigarette. "Quite vicissitudes." Zhang Fengxia could see that Lu Feng looked over there from time to time throughout the morning, and said, "You better take care of yourself, one day you will go bankrupt, and you will be one of them." Just as Lu Feng was about to speak, he suddenly saw the other party stand up straight, and the next second he raised his legs and was ready to step over the fence. "Hey!" Lu Feng shouted and rushed over. The people present were attracted by the sudden shout and looked up, even the man turned his head to look. "Don't jump," Lu Feng yelled, rushing up and pulling him directly. He didn't resist, didn't struggle, was pulled by Lu Feng, and sat on the ground weakly, with haggard written all over his face. "I just finished smoking the last cigarette, that is my last property." He looked at Lu Feng with numb eyes, his voice was a little distorted, and said, "Thank you. I heard that you are bankrupt." Lu Feng looked at the face carefully, and felt a little familiar. He encouraged him, "Isn't it money? Life can always be bright. You should have a home at your age, right?" He nodded. "Look, think about your wife." "My wife ran away with someone," he said, looking up. "Then you've been around for so many years, and you don't even have a brother by your side? Go out and rely on your brother. If you survive, everything will be fine." Lu Feng crouched down and encouraged. "My wife just ran away with my best brother." His voice began to fluctuate a little, and his mood was a little unstable. Lu Feng scratched his head anxiously and said, "You still have a child, you are dead, child. The child belongs to them. I've been kept in the dark for 5 years, a full 5 years." His voice had begun to cry. "Parents, you still have parents. Your parents raised you so much that they made you jump into the Yellow River to die. They went to my house to make a scene, and my parents were furious on the spot. Some time ago, I sold the house in my hometown and buried it for the second old man." Lu Feng. Too bad, let alone him. Even Lu Feng didn't want to live after hearing him. "You can't save him. If you could, he wouldn't stay here for a few days." Zhang Fengxia stood behind at some point, and said, "Don't think that you are a saint, everyone who has come to a dead end. There are unavoidable difficulties, poor people must have something to hate, and vice versa." Lu Feng stared at him, always feeling that this face was familiar, but he couldn't remember it for a while, and asked, "What's your surname?" "Myangi's surname is Du, his name is Du Kefeng, and he is 34 this year." He murmured about himself, as if he was telling a life obituary. Lu Feng slapped his forehead with his hand, and finally remembered, "Isn't this the king of DVDs, Boss Du, who was very famous in the late 1990s? After 2010, this person has a normal business and is basically semi-retired. Sometimes he does some angel investment or something." Few people know him, but Lu Feng has read a book called Shang Renzi in his last life. This book is not a collection of rich people, but a collection of many businessmen who have experienced ups and downs in their lives. Among them, Lu Feng remembers him the most, John Tu, who has the same name as a great director. When he was a child, He managed his father's bankruptcy, then he was betrayed by his cooperating brother, his wife, and his parents died early. When he was the poorest, he slept in the park for half a year and became a homeless person. Even so, he finally found a job. In August 1993, I got an investment to open a tape store. A year later, in 1994, when VCD came out, he quickly sensed a business opportunity and started a chain store. He then opened a factory. Taking advantage of the loose supervision at the time and a large number of pirated films from Hong Kong and Taiwan, he madly hit the market with low prices, and once accounted for 8% of the market. More than 10. By the way, when Rebs was in Jinshan, he lowered the price of genuine CDs and fired the first shot against pirated copies. It is said that he was targeted at that year. Oops, Lu Feng couldn't hide his excitement. He patted his hand with his hand and held it tightly. He couldn't jump in the Yellow River, it was a treasure. People are so miserable, what do you mean when you look happy? Zhang Fengxia asked a little upset, do you have any humanity? No, no, Lu Feng tried his best not to laugh out loud. I'm so miserable, so funny in your eyes, Du Kefeng asked. No, I'm sorry, I just remembered something happy, I'm sorry. Lu Feng quickly apologized and took a deep breath, but his heart blossomed when he saw him, and he could meet him after a meal. Gao Jiwei, walking around the Yellow River, can meet Du Kefeng. Do you believe in fate? Lu Feng controlled his emotions, looked at Du Kefeng and said seriously, I'll tell you a secret now, in fact, I'm the 13th generation of Mission. Ha 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 ha, Zhang Fengxia laughed suddenly, leaning back and forth while sitting on the steps beside her. Let's ignore her, there is a saying that when the heavens give great responsibility to the people, you must first work hard on your mind, work your muscles, and starve your body and skin before you can do great things. You have experienced so much, if you are compare it to a stock, now you have bottomed out, and the next step is to rebound. Lu Feng grabbed his hand and said, I am very optimistic about your stock. You cannot help me. It's not that I help you, it's that you have the word good luck written all over your face. Lu Feng knew that he had suffered so many blows, and it would be difficult for him to recover for a while. The only thing that could restore his self-confidence was metaphysics. Look at your hand, the palm lines are severely split, this line is forked, which means that your upper half of life is unlucky. If you go along the fork in the road, the lifeline is so short, if you turn back in time, the road will be smooth. Looking at you face, Lu Feng ruffled his hair as he spoke, and said, the palace of destiny is white, and the main palace is the master, but the base Hu palace has a suffocating aura that hinders the master, indicating that life is threatened, but it doesn't matter, combined with the recent favorable weather and place. This year is the year of the horse, your main palace support is extremely huge, once you get through this time, you will be in a good position. Really? That's right, you can do everything well, and you can make a lot of money. Lu Feng looked at it seriously for a while and said, your life is so calamitous, but it's easy to break out. Between the age of 50 and 60, it's still too much. If there is a catastrophe, this is easy to handle, when the time comes, you can just retire and escape at home. Du Kefeng was excited for a while, as if he saw hope in life, but the next second, like a deflated ball, he said, what's the use, I don't have a penny, I just smoked the last cigarette. I'll help you, Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, the next 10 years will be a decade of making a fortune, and your luck will be extremely strong. I'll help you, and you have to help me and work for me. You are also the boss. That's right, I'm still the big boss. There are factories all over the country. We're going to start a large factory of 5,000 mu here. How about letting you be the factory manager? Lu Feng looked at the time and said, noon now, let's go to dinner, I'll buy you some clothes in a while, and stay in a 5-star hotel. The other party stood up and nodded excitedly. He didn't have anything. He used his luck for the next 10 years to make money for Lu Feng, and he saw hope again. "The car is ahead," Lu Feng pointed to the front. Just a few steps away, Zhang Fengxia grabbed him and whispered, "Are you really taking him back to the hotel?" "Yup." "Would you really let him be the director of the factory here?" Lu Feng nodded and said, "Yes." "You're crazy, just to save a person and toss your own industry. You can just give him some money and let him find a job." Zhang Fengxia glanced at Du Kefeng and said, "If you lie to ghosts, just lie to him. Now, why do you still believe it?" "Liar to a ghost." A mysterious smile appeared on Lu Feng's face, and he said, "His luck in the next 10 years is indeed very strong, you don't understand." After he finished, he went after him. Zhang Fengxia stood there and looked at his back. The whole person was a little dazed. Could it be that he was really a descendant of Mission? Zhang Fengxia couldn't see through Lu Feng at all, and suddenly remembered what her grandfather told her: the smart people in this world will use simple excuses to cover up their real intentions. What they say is like the sugar coating that wraps a tablet. As for whether you have the ability to remove its sugar coating, see what's inside, it's up to you.